How's it going, folks? And welcome back to part 3 of PSG by everyone. This is going to be the final part. To kick things off today, we are at the end of the 5th season, 2 years after we left things last time out. Just as a little reminder, at the top of the description, there's going to be a download link. So if you want to download the save games for this experiment, maybe have a look through it yourself, you're more than welcome to. If you find anything weird, wonderful, beautiful, I want to hear about it in the comments. Of course, with this kind of save game and the fact there's 1,500 players all moved to PSG, I can't follow all the individual stories. In the videos, I can only really give you an overview. Today, we kick things off, as I mentioned, 5 years in the future. A lot of players are about to leave on a free transfer, and I have a feeling it's about to get very, very messy. We are here on the transfer screen of PSG to kick things off today because there's been 2 years since you were last here, and in those 2 years, they've not really spent a lot of money. They have sold a lot of players, though. £928 million worth of players sold in their 4th season. Yusuf Demir, the biggest departure, he has gone to Man City, who, just as a reminder, were relegated and then got promoted right away. They seem to have bounced back pretty well. Elsewhere, Bayern Munich spending what feels like a lot of money. The reality is that these larger fees here really aren't that big in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, it's weird how much the market seems to have been impacted by just PSG having so many players to sell and other teams obviously not having players to sell. I imagine that all the teams outside of PSG just have a lot more money than they would normally for a combination of not having as many players on the wages, but also not needing to spend quite as much money on top talent. So that was last year. This year, they continued to sell players. In fact, they sold £870 million worth of players, and their biggest departure was Mo Salah for £55 million to Newcastle, which seems mental because he's 33 years old. I'm kind of surprised they were able to get that much money for him. I say all of that in my own Newcastle Let's Play. I also signed a 33-year-old or 32-year-old Mo Salah for, I want to say, £10 million, which, to be honest, compared to this, makes it look like I'm an absolute genius. But yes, they've sold a continually large amount of players. They have made their first transfer in all of this experiment 5 years in. They've picked up Giorgio Scalvini. I'm not sure why they've picked him up, although... no, I was going to say although and then come up with a good point. I don't know why they've picked him up. He was playing for their kind of second team, then he went to Nantes, and then, well, they've signed him for £8 million. I think did they sign him at the end of the year? Oh, okay, they signed him at the end of the year. He joined the club 4 days ago. I mean, it makes more sense that he hasn't played any games. I still don't understand really why they've signed him. I suppose the logical question is, how have they got on over the last 2 years, PSG? And the answer to that question is rather well. They've won La Liga, not La Liga, Liga. It'd be an achievement if they'd won La Liga, wouldn't it? They've won Liga the last 2 years back to back, fairly convincingly. This year, the closest it's been, Monaco, their closest competitor. But of course, they have got Kylian Mbappe and Erling Haaland up top, with Alisson in goal and Joshua Kimmich getting 10 assists. Unsurprisingly, the PSG team is quite good. I mean, you can see the top goal scorers here. They've got Harry Kane firing on all cylinders. They've got Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes also chipping in with goals on the assist front. Well, it's Kimmich doing well, Bernardo Silva and Mbappe out in the wide areas, and Alphonso Davies out on the left-hand side. If we just look at their team, it's starting to look a bit more like a normal team now. The scrolly bar bit on the right, the kind of what is this called? I don't know what it's called. The thing that you click on, the scroll, I'll just call it the scrolly bar. The kind of anchor is way bigger than it was before because there's now less players to show. How many players are still at the club? The answer is 383. We're almost back to normal. I say that like the damage hasn't already been done on the rest of the league. The game has started to continue at a more normal speed now, I'm pleased to report. So PSG doing very good in Liga. Over in the Champions League, they've won it the last 5 years, PSG. Most recently, they beat Bayern Munich in the final 4-2. And in this game, Ruben Dias was sent off right at the end of the first half. You wouldn't really know that looking at the balance of play. Despite being a man down for the majority of the game, PSG excelled and ultimately were able to win in extra time. The team that they fielded is the team that you can see here. A pretty strong team, by all accounts. Who is Bitshiabu? I need to know. Bitshiabu is not a player I'm familiar with. Okay, he starts at PSG. I assume that he had to play in the team because of homegrown player requirements, maybe? How many players did PSG have on the bench? I think you're meant to have, or you can have, like 12 players on the bench. I mean, it does look like they had benched players. Have they just got like a lack of defenders? That seems to be the issue. I noticed here they've got a lot of younger players at the squad who I assume probably fall into that homegrown category. Players like Thierry Small, one of the better fullbacks in the game, of course. He has moved from, I think it's Southampton he plays for in real life, to PSG. I also noticed Dane Scarlett down here. Of course, all the younger players they snapped up have now become homegrown at club. And for a player like Dane Scarlett, he gets announced on the bench for the Champions League, even though he's not actually playing for the senior team at all, just because they have a general shortage of homegrown players. So that was the most recent Champions League final. In the one that preceded that, they beat Hertha Berlin after extra time. Apparently it's something about extra time that seems to serve them well. In this game, Alisson got injured, and it doesn't look like Donnarumma came on. I'm really curious now who ended up going in goal for them. Unfortunately, we can't look at it because of the way these videos are simulated into the distant future. Football Manager only caches a certain number of games. But you can see here, they were dominant. If they had lost this game, it would have been one of the biggest FMings ever. So that's a little bit about how things are looking at PSG. But I wonder how the rest of England and the rest of Europe is looking. Is Newcastle still the best team in the country? The answer is no. Burnley have won the league. I have some questions. Chelsea won the league the previous year. And this previous year, Burnley, where did Burnley finish? Burnley finished 6th. And then this year, they've come from 6th and finished top. Elsewhere, Liverpool down in mid-table. Manchester United and Chelsea and Tottenham seem to have recovered a little bit. Newcastle are a little off the pace. I mean, I'm curious now to look at Burnley. They finished 2nd the first year of the simulation behind Newcastle. But now they've won the league. Rafa Benitez is their manager. Dwight McNeil is their key man. He was one of the players who was not caught up in the PSG transfer fiasco. I'm just wondering if they've had a tycoon takeover or anything. Doesn't look like they have. I can only imagine they've invested money wisely, picking up scraps from PSG over the years, and that definitely looks like it has been the case. In fact, you can see here they bought a significant number of PSG players back in 2022-23, capitalised on their first year where they finished 2nd and went big. And the players they brought in are good, and I guess they've made a difference. Over in Spain, Barcelona and Real Madrid are still very, very good. And Atletico Madrid, welcome back. They've returned. Last year they finished 14th, and then this year they've just finished 11th. Frank Lampard is still their manager. So, well done, Frank. You've recovered them quite nicely. Real Madrid dominant. I'm going to assume in Italy, Juve are still the big dogs, and indeed they still are. They just have better players than everyone else. Chiesa is a bit of a cheat code in Football Manager this year. He has been ridiculous year on year. Ballon d'Or winner, Chiesa, we should call him, of course, after last time out. He has been very, very impressive. And as for over in Germany, could Hoffenheim keep their dominance going? The answer is no. The last 2 years, Bayern Munich have picked up the title, both times with pretty good points totals. The year most recently, they actually were a little bit closer to being caught by the teams behind them. But you can see, just looking at their transfer business over the years, they, of course, being Bayern Munich, have quite a lot of money to spend, and they've definitely used that money to pick up some pretty good deals on the whole from PSG. I mean, De Ligt for 14 million just doesn't seem fair, really, does it? So 5 years in, how are the finances looking at PSG? I hear you wonder. Well, here they are. The club is about to go into a really weird situation. They've got £586 million in the bank. That is because of all the players they've been selling. And as they've been selling a load of players, the wages have been crashing. The current wage budget sits at £6 million. The club is currently spending £24 million, but there's about to be a ridiculous number of players released at the end of their contracts, which means the committed spend in a month's time is only going to be £2 million. Yes, that's right. If we just try and load the club screen and hope that it doesn't crash, and sort the players here. of the players in their current squad, I should sort this the other way really, players who don't have contracts expiring in like a week's time, there is, I mean, how many players are there here? There is a squad of 22 players that are going to be left. All the other players down here that aren't highlighted are potentially going to be released. I'm sure some of them have already organised their escape. It looks like many of them are already planning their moves at the end of the contract. It's going to be interesting now to see how PSG recover from this, because they're in a weird situation where they've made a load of money off sales, and they're probably going to be able to buy any players that they want in the near future. So even if they lose some incredible players on free transfers, in a year or two, they're just going to be able to buy them back because they've got an obscene amount of money they've just slowly amassed. That's, of course, assuming they can remain competitive in the meantime. What I would say is, of the players highlighted here, they're all quite good footballers, the ones who still have contracts. Haaland, Pedri, Hakimi, Donnarumma, Alphonso Davies, Moukoko, Gavi. Interesting to note with players like Moukoko, hasn't really developed in this save game because he's not been given all that many opportunities for PSG's team. He's played with the B team frequently. Obviously, he's been a little neglected in training. As a result, really hasn't hit his potential. And it's not a dissimilar story with players like Gavi either, who, yeah, just due to the situation PSG find themselves under, haven't been able to develop the youngsters perhaps as much as you would expect. Now, it is worth noting there has been a takeover at the club, but it's just a promotion from within, so I don't think that will have changed the finances too much. They did also win the Club World Championships for a second time in a row. I mean, congratulations, PSG. You've won 5 Champions Leagues. You've won Liga. I don't know how they've got around financial fair play all these years, but they've managed it. Financially, they now look really, really good in terms of the situation they find themselves in. I'm quite excited to go forward now 5 years to 10 years in the future and see if they are still as dominant a force as they have been just throughout this entire video. So I'm going to join you guys in a moment. We're going to go forward 5 years and see if PSG, having bought everyone in football, are still the top dog, and also if there's any weird lasting effects. Maybe Burnley are about to have an era of dominance in the Premier League. Let's go find out. Okay, I'm quite excited for this. It's 2031, and let's just go look at PSG, shall we? I have no idea what to expect here. Pochettino is still manager. We've definitely gone forward in time. Okay, we have definitely gone forward in time. I had to check. They've continued to win the league each and every year. Wilmot Svenberg had the most assists for them in this year just gone. He has developed really, really well. He is a player who starts, I guess, at Hammarby, and he's turned into an absolute all-star for them in the midfield. That's a weird name and face that I just didn't expect to see, really. If we just look at the league title, they've won the league the last 5 years. This year, it was a little bit closer. They only got 83 points. The year before that, Lens did very well to finish second. Where did they finish recently? They finished 4th. Lens seem to have done quite well in this save game. Besides that, though, it's been Monaco really propping up PSG year on year towards the top of the table. As for the Champions League, the good news is there's been a bit more variance here, although it is the teams you might have guessed just from our general observations. Newcastle, Man City, Newcastle, Bayern Munich, the teams winning the Champions League. PSG did lose out in 2030 in the semi-final to, not in the semi-final, in the final to Newcastle. I want to go look at that game. So in that final that they lost to Newcastle, you can see the team here that they fielded as they were knocked out on penalties. Somewhat against the run of play, it has to be said. Donnarumma in goal, Alphonso Davies and Hakimi in at wing-back, Morato, Diaz, Kimmich, Gonzalez and Pedri all at centre-mid. Who is Gonzalez? It's a regen. How much did they sign him for? 36 million. See, this is the issue, isn't it? PSG still had all this money left over, so they were able to still kind of reinvest it and do quite well. They've got Lecomte, Haaland, and then Colliode out on the left-hand side. Again, another regen. I've got to remind myself, we're 10 years in the future here, Jack. Regens exist. They're real. What this does raise a question about, actually, is PSG spending and, what kind of money they were spending in the last 5 years. Because, of course, they had all these years of selling all the players they'd hoarded. But then they no longer had the players to sell anymore. So in terms of transfers over the last 5 years, when you look at the bar chart, it doesn't look like they've spent a lot of money. year on year. What you have to remember is this bar chart is on a scale of 0 to almost £2 billion. So even this year here, where it looks unimpressive, they spent £199 million. The big signing there was João Mario, who they picked up for £50 million from Porto and then sold after he only played 9 games in 2 years to Roma. Yeah, I imagine that they're going to have signed a load of players that they just didn't really play. Malang Sarr, for example, was picked up by PSG. Now, to be fair, he's played a few more games. I'm not sure if you can describe £42 million for a man who has played 23 games in 5 years. A good investment, but it's an investment nevertheless, and it looks like they have just continued year on year to put money into the club. Even as, close as 2 years ago, this bar doesn't look that impressive. Still 139 million spent, and the bulk of that went on Jerome Collio, who's the youngster who we looked at from that cup final against Newcastle. You can see he was signed from Lyon for 56 million. So PSG, with all this money to spend, just able to pry away all the best talent from other French clubs, unfortunately. Now, let's have a look at the other leagues. Over in England, what is the state of play? The state of play is an era of dominance for Newcastle, with Man City chipping in every so often. Manchester United, Chelsea, Man City, all towards the top. Liverpool and Arsenal, who of course were relegated in the first year, now re-established themselves as Premier League clubs. The top goal scorer was Mason Greenwood for Man City. That is cursed, isn't it? Ederson, by the way, highest average rating, or joint highest average rating, playing for Newcastle. And Musiala, with the most assists in the league, playing over at Chelsea. He was signed from Monaco for £100 million. Prior to that, PSG sold him for £24 million to Monaco. I mean, there's so many players who have gone for so cheap away from PSG. I'm sure if you were to deep dive into all the transfers, there'd be some weird kind of cycles of deals where PSG have let someone go for cheap, then maybe bought them back for just silly sums of money. Over in Serie A, I'm expecting Zebra to continue to be dominant, and that is, well, mostly the case. Inter did interfere one league season, but besides that, it's been Juventus all the way. Serie A, by the way, has climbed to be the second highest reputation league in Europe. Over in the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich are bloody good. They have reigned supreme for the last few years. You can see here, Phil Foden with the highest average rating playing for Dortmund, João Felix playing for Hertha Berlin, Kulusevski leading the way with assists, and Rafael and Litina playing for Bayern, also doing very well on the average rating fronts. And as for the Spanish First Division, Atleti are back towards the top. And actually, when you look at this league table, and indeed most of the league tables, with the odd exception, it's kind of crazy how the status quo 10 years on has just kind of resumed as if nothing really happened over the last 10 years, as if it was all just a horrible fever dream when PSG bought all of football. Looking at things here, Real Madrid top, Barca second, although joint on points. What a crazy end to the season that would have been, head-to-head, separating the two teams where Real Madrid had the edge. So yeah, Barcelona have closed the gap slowly on, Real Madrid. That said, it'd be fair to say that Real Madrid have been the main beneficiaries of the situation they found themselves in here. So in terms of the PSG squad, it feels weird to come to it and for it all just to be normal. But that's exactly what it is. It's just a normal team that doesn't look that weird and is absolutely fine. I mean, you can see here, Hakimi's on a ridiculous sum of money. Haaland and Kimmich also on silly money. In fact, all the players are kind of on silly money here when you look at some of the wages. I can't believe Hakimi's on as much as £625,000. But of all the players in their team, he has been consistently in the starting 11, probably been their player of the entire save game over the last 10 years, to be honest. He's played for them every single year regularly. And because I know people are going to ask about it, in the Club World Cup, PSG beat Man City in the final to make it 3 straight wins. And when it comes to the World Awards, I want to go and have a look at the Team of the Year. I want to see what it looks like. The Goal 50 best player, Kylian Mbappe, playing up top for Newcastle. He moved to them on a free transfer, ran down his contract, and has been just tearing up the Premier League for the last few years. Kulusevski and Greenwood in second and third. In the Ballon d'Or voting, you can see here, Mbappe won it the most recent year. Prior to that, Greenwood, Mbappe, Haaland. I'll tell you what, Milinkovic-Savic winning it is a little bit of a weird one. Also, Mo Salah, who I questioned the signing of, he picked up the Ballon d'Or aged 33 after he joined Newcastle for £50 million. World Team of the Year time. Any weird players going to be popping up here? Let's take a look. It's mostly normal, I want to say. Donnarumma in goal this year. Ruben Dias and also Pedri both fitting in the team. I feel like Ruben Dias has been a really, really important player for PSG over the course of this experiment. When you look at his ratings, I think it's fair to say alongside Hakimi, he's been one of their absolute tip-top players. If I'm not mistaken, he is also their captain. Elsewhere, we've got the likes of Mbappe, Kulusevski and Chiesa, Nuno Mendes out at left-back, Pedro Porro at right-back, and Wesley Fofana playing for Zebra in the middle. As for the best 11 for all seasons, unsurprisingly, it's massively dominated by PSG players. You can see a full list of all the players here. PSG, over the last 10 years, have been quite good. Even if they've not won the Champions League in 4 years, they have won it 6 out of the last 10. And that legacy seems to be remembered by the game when it comes to the overall best 11. So in conclusion, what happens if PSG buy all the players? Well, they're really good and they finally win a Champions League. Unfortunately, there wasn't a big collapse afterwards, which is kind of what I was hoping was going to happen, that we were going to see some mad downfall. It's not happened. Fair play to Pochettino for the role that he's played. He also did quite a good job at the end of our Newcastle Let's Play when I holidayed into the future, taking over them and doing quite well. Maybe Pochettino's just really, really good in Football Manager this year. I'm not entirely sure. Thank you for watching today's video. As always, if you've enjoyed it, do drop a like on it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. As I've already mentioned, down in the description, you can pick up the save games used for this FM Simulate. Hopefully I see you guys on the next one. And well, until then, it is me, Jack, and I'll see you all in a bit. I'm out.